Screening for the early detection of disease is an important tool in our public health systems. So what are the criteria for ideal screening? Listed here are 4 criteria, and we will follow this by a detailed look at each of the criteria. First, the disease needs to produce a substantial amount of death or disability. Second, early detection is possible and it improves outcomes. You don't want to screen for something if there's not a treatment and if the treatment does not improve outcomes. Third, there is a feasible testing strategy for screening. We need to make sure that the screening tool is realistic and it's appropriate and it's available. And 4, screening is acceptable in terms of harms, costs, and patient acceptance. If you think about our bioethics unit, that all relates to this item number 4. Let's look at each of these in a little greater depth. So the first criteria for ideal screening is that the disease produces substantial death and/or disability. This means that the disease needs to be easy to evaluate and that there's lots of data on the cause of death or disability. We have already looked at data related to death and disability, but as a review, let's take a look again in terms of the United States and death and disability. Again, we're going to turn to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC, and the National Center for Health Statistics. Here is a report on mortality in the United States 2017. We have to remember that with statistics, when we're reporting for a year, the statistics generally lag by a year or so because you need to have the year end before you can look back and report on it. So this report was created in November of 2018, and there will be a follow-up November 2019 that looks at the year of 2018. Here are some of the key findings. Life expectancy is declining, that the death rate increased by 0.04%, age-specific death rates increased, the 10 leading causes of death remained the same as in 2016. There's some information about infant mortality rates, the causes of death for infants, and other information. Let's scroll through the report until we find the leading causes of death. This is on figure 4. So as you can see, they report that the leading causes of death have remained unchanged. The number 1 cause of death in the United States is heart disease, followed by cancer. That is why we spend a lot of resources, time, energy, money on screening for these 2 diseases. They have a huge impact in terms of the burden of disease in the United States. This fulfills the criteria number 1, that the disease or disability has significant impact on the health of the community. Now that we've discussed the first criteria for ideal screening, let's move to the second. Early detection is possible and it improves outcomes. This requires us to ask a couple questions. First, what if there is no treatment? If we can detect a disease but there's no treatment or outcomes are not improved, there's no need to provide the screening. It provides no benefit to the individual. It actually might be harmful to an individual, as they'll know that they have a disease for which there's no treatment. These things need to be considered. Another question relates to the timing of detection that the screening provides. What if screening does not detect it until it is too late? So for example, screening for lung cancer with an X-ray. You can screen for lung cancer with an X-ray, but generally by the time they do that, it's too late and the treatment is not effective. Another question that relates to the time of detection is lead time bias, and we will look at that in our next video.